Content that I'm going to cover today for some of you will be just redundant based on what you heard at convention. And I'm going to go ahead and go over two different parts that we heard at convention from Tom Schrader. He is a network marketing genius, in my opinion. He's this great little guy that talked to us a couple of different times. One was during our general sessions, and then he also did the training that was specific to folks that were at the ambassador level through the gold level. And then anyone that was in the other levels actually had separate sessions that they attended. So when we started talking about this with Amber and Aaron, what they ask is that, hey, can we actually do a session where we talk about this? And some of us would have loved to have been in that and heard his insight and actually weren't able to. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to cover two different topics today. One of them is about creating instant trust and rapport with pretty much everyone or anyone. And then also how to sell and close a prospect in seconds. And I think that that's something that, I don't know about you guys, but I have absolutely struggled with is, okay, I'm having a conversation with someone, how do I actually close the sale and not make it seem awkward? So let's first start off with kind of creating trust and rapport. So what's interesting is that prospects that you're talking to, people that you're talking to, they'll make an instant decision about you, whether they're going to trust you, whether they're going to believe in you, or if they should turn on the salesman alarm. So just to give you some examples, when we talked through this, what we talked about was a little bit around, can you imagine if someone said to you, trust me, I'm from the tax authorities and I'm here to help you. Do you think that you would really have a high level of trust for that person? Probably not. Then also, you think about the sleazy sales guys that you run into on a used car sales lot, you're not going to probably trust them. You think about, you get a phone call, and as a salesperson, you automatically say, I don't even want to hear your pitch. I'm getting off the phone right now, right? There's no trust, there's no rapport. So then think about it. The biggest sale that we have to make is really to get the person to listen to us in the first place. Otherwise, the way that Big Al described it is that you may be telling this person messages and you may be trying to establish a relationship with them or even talk to them about your product or the business. And what's going to happen is that's going to hit their forehead and it's going to fall off on the floor because you don't have any trust with that person. And what he talked about is that from a decision perspective, that whether you're going to proceed with buying, with becoming an ambassador, any of those things, that decision is pretty much immediate, and it's usually the final decision. And you don't have a chance to really make that first impression. So the difference between either getting a yes and having someone who's willing to listen to your pitch, or getting a no and having someone really turn on that salesman alarm, put up the guard, not let you through. And the difference is going to be being able to establish a sense of rapport with that person that you're talking to. So without rapport, think about this. So you ask your prospects, all right, well, do you want to live longer, or would you prefer to die quickly? And would you rather have more money in your life, or would you rather have less money in your life? So that's really what we're doing with Plexus, right? We're asking them, we're giving them an opportunity to live longer, live healthier, live better lives. And we're also offering them an opportunity potentially to make more money and have that additional money in their life. So what's going to happen is that if you don't build rapport with that particular prospect, is they're going to have a situation where they're basically saying, no, I don't want any of those things. So you take someone who's basically a pre-sold prospect and you literally talk them out of the business opportunity and the health. So what they're really telling you when you talk to them is that, no, I'd rather die quickly and be broke than do business with you. Well, that's horrible, right? I mean, we don't want that to be the answer. So what you need to do is you really need to find a way to quickly establish a rapport with anyone. So the gas station attendant, the salesperson that's ringing you out at the store, anyone that you're meeting in any kind of social situation. And what Big Al talks a lot about is he talks about these unconscious programs that really run in the background of our minds. And think about that is there's these internal programs that say, you know, I can trust people that are like me, who think the same way, who see the world from the same viewpoint. So if I'm a Republican and I hear someone from the Republican Party stand up and talk about something, a lot of times I'm going to agree with them because they're part of my party. But think about, I'm sitting in a room where I'm listening to someone who's a Democrat and I know what their belief system is and I know what their policies are, and I sit there and I listen to them and it's just like, like none of that can possibly be true because you aren't the same as me. So I don't trust you and I don't trust what you're saying. So just think about some of those things as we go through. Also think about, let's say you're in a foreign country. So Janelle, who's online, actually is very familiar with this. She's in Australia, right? But you look around and let's say you go to China and you're there and you're amongst billions of Chinese people and you see someone that's from America. Instantly, you have a better connection with that person really than any connection that you have, and you automatically have some level of trust or kinship with that person because they happen to come from the same country. So think about, this might be the conversation, right? You go up to that person and you say, you know, wow, I'm from New York City. Where are you from? And they say, oh, well, I'm from Redlands, California. And you say, oh, wow, we're neighbors. Yeah, not really, right? We're from completely different sides of the country. We're from completely different areas and probably lifestyles, but you still feel a closer kinship with those folks than you would anyone who is in the native Chinese culture. So you kind of find those connections and you find those people. Janelle can tell you, if you're in Australia and you see or you hear someone that has an American accent, instantly you get excited and you want to talk with that person because you know that they have something in common with you and they probably are suffering from some of the same adjustments that you are. All right, so when you tell a prospect something that they already believe, his subconscious mind starts doing this program that says, you know, I can tell that you're like a total ninja from a mind perspective, and you've mind melded with me, and you know exactly what I'm thinking, and you think the same way, and you believe the same things. Therefore, we would want the same things and want to do the same things as, you know, I would want to do the same things that you're already doing. So we have a connection. And whatever you say next, I'm going to believe because you and I think the same way. So that way, when you go through, you could actually find just some very simple statements and facts that folks believe that you can pretty much universally agree on. And you can start naming those off, and people will start developing that trust in you, that connection with you, and then will be more than willing to listen to the next steps of your sales pitch or your program or what things you're proposing to them. So there's a few different statements that are really great that we can kind of agree on, right? From a health perspective, you know, we all want to live longer. Growing old is painful. Everybody wants to be fit. Everybody needs more energy. Okay, well, those are things that very easily and very quickly you can kind of feel yourself saying, yeah, like I agree with that. That makes sense. Well, the same thing happens with people that you're talking to that you're not even familiar with, right? And suddenly they start saying, oh, wow, this person has the same beliefs as I do. They have the same opinions that I do. Therefore, I must agree with them and we must be the same kind of person. Great. Same thing on the business opportunity side. You know, jobs interfere with our week. Well, absolutely they do. Well, wouldn't 2 paychecks be better than 1? Yeah, that would make sense. It's absolutely hard to get raises these days. Yeah, it is. It's very difficult. Okay, so being our own boss gives us freedom. A 5-day weekend is better than a 2-day weekend. Well, who wouldn't agree with that? So you're using some kind of general facts that you can share with these folks. And what you're doing is they're automatically saying, yeah, those make sense. I agree with you. Those are things that I think as well. So therefore, we must be on the same wavelength. So you can kind of think that if you're nodding in agreement when you hear those statements, you're also seeing your prospects and people that you're talking to nodding in agreement as well. So the first thing that you can do with a prospect, and these would be really more on the stranger side, right? These are your opportunities when you're doing, you're out at the park, you're out at the grocery store, and you're talking to someone either in the aisle or someone up at the front. So what you can do is to use these methods to really establish instant rapport, connection, use that little program in their brain that helps them automatically trust you and believe in what you're saying. So what you're going to want to do is just share one fact that you can agree on. And that'll start that, oh, well, yeah, I agree with that. And then you can share another fact that you agree on. So just something potentially about, this business, their business that they're working. So if they're a gas station attendant, something about, wow, it must be really tough to work here with these types of hours. Yeah, it is. This is really hard, or wow, wouldn't it be great if we all had, 4-day weekends instead of 2-day weekends? Sure, absolutely. You're going to find that instant rapport. So then the next thing that you're always going to want to try to do is smile. And I think that most of the people that are on this call actually already do that really well. So I'm not too concerned. But one of the things that he talked a lot about is that there's actually a little program that even babies as young as 7 weeks old have started already implementing within their subconscious. So what they do is you don't know who to trust when you're a baby. So the way that they decide if they're going to trust someone or if they're not going to trust someone is there's this little program that tells them if someone smiles at you, then they are trustworthy. Now, honestly, that's probably a pretty stupid program, but it works. Hold on just one second. Sorry about that. Howling dog. He's lonely in the other room, but he won't walk on the hardwood floors, so he has to stay there. All right, so those are some of the things. So think about that. That's how babies know that that people are okay, and they'll actually usually respond by smiling and warming up to you. It's actually the same thing with adults. And you can test this just by going around to other people who are out, strangers in the streets, and just watch what happens when you start smiling at them. Most of the time what you'll see is that people will actually respond to you and they'll start smiling back. And that's actually a great way, I think, to automatically start that system of rapport and connection is to start with a smile. So there's also a bunch of other little programs that we have that run in the back of our minds. And one of them is really about survival. And our entire species is really set up to where obviously it's pretty important for us to be able to survive. And one of the ways that we believe that that happens is that we do things that are similar to other people, which makes it more likely that we'll be able to survive in our culture. So one of the things that Big Al talked about a lot was using some key phrases and magic words to connect with people and to get them to start agreeing with you and establishing more of that rapport. So he liked to use the phrase, most people. So think about that, and you think that, okay, most people would like to know the magic words that you should use. Most people would use those magic words over and over again if they knew them. These magic words can help people become super communicators. So if you're like most people, you can't wait to learn these words. So that's what the word is. It's most people. So just keep in mind that when you start saying that, you have people wanting to go down that path, right? So most people have really seen great results with Plexus. Most people have actually been able to restore their health and lose weight with Plexus. Most people, so you see how using those phrases, using those words to kind of kick that off, that it makes it so that they feel like, oh wow, well most people believe that, most people do that, I want to be the same as those most people, so I'm going to go ahead and go down that path as well. So, and honestly, you see yourself, I would say you see yourself doing those types of things on a daily basis, right? So let's say you're looking at two different restaurants, and one of the restaurants is completely full, has a ton of people at it, and the other one is empty. Well, what you're probably going to do is say, wow, a lot of people like that one, and most people are going there, so I'm going to go to the restaurant that actually has a lot of people versus the one that doesn't have anyone. And you'll also, so that will help you just start establishing additional rapport with that person, and to start to get them to say, oh yeah, well, if most people really like those products and most people have been really successful with them, then more than likely I will be too. And if I'm not, then I'm the one who has a problem, not so much everyone else. So that's something that you can keep in mind as one of these key phrases. The next one that he talked about is another one. It says, well, you know how. And I would challenge all of you that are on the call today or listening to this later, take some of these phrases and start just practicing them on people. Because I thought it was really helpful, and it doesn't work out very well when you're doing a Zoom session. So maybe this is another training we can do again in person. Everyone should just fly to Colorado and hang out with me. But what you can do is you can practice some of these phrases, and you'll actually start seeing a very interesting reaction. So when you use the phrase, well, you know how, what you'll notice is that people will actually start nodding before they even hear the rest of the sentence. They'll be like, oh, well, you're about to tell me something that everybody knows, and I already know, so I'm going to start agreeing with you in advance. And it's fascinating because when we were doing these exercises, and I know, Veronica, I think you were there and hearing this, it's so interesting because you're like, oh, yeah, I did nod when he said that. And I did nod when that statement came up and when I was working with my partner. And so that's something that you can just kind of keep in mind and practice these phrases, because I think it will really help you establish that method of talking and establishing relationships and rapport with people. All right. So that's kind of the first two there. And then there's a few next key phrases or magic words that he recommends, Big Al does, as far as putting them together and creating a situation where you're asking them, and it's not aggressive, you're not doing a hard sell on them, and you're actually able to get them to really come to you and ask you or feel like they're doing you a favor. And honestly, you're just getting them to make the decision and hear more about the business or the product opportunity. So using the phrases, I'm just curious. So I'm just curious. Also, the next one is, I just found out. Great. And then, would it be okay if? So think about, I'm just curious, have you had that limp long? What's going on with that? Oh, I just found out that these great ease products are amazing as far as addressing some of those concerns. And would it be okay if I gave you a sample to try, and you could try it for a few days and let me know how it works? Okay, well, that's no longer really salesy. That's no longer really aggressive. You're just asking them, well, I'm just curious. And people really do, and as you try this out, you'll see they really do want to be helpful. They want to engage. They want to talk. They want to give you their story. So this is something where you can use these key words to just move your sales process along a little bit, but in a way that you're really building more of rapport, you're building more of a relationship, and you're helping them through that process. So just to give you some examples of this, is that you really want to use those phrases combined, those last three. So you could even say, I'm just curious. Would you like to get skinnier and be healthier? I just found out that Plexus Slim can do that for you. Would it be okay if you tried it for 60 days to see if it would do that for you? Okay, well, number one, that's a great, very unaggressive way to say something, but it's also a great way to get them to say, oh, well, would it be okay if? Well, yeah, I want to help you out. Sure, it would be okay if that happened. Well, then you can go into, all right, well, if you want to do that, great, here's the next steps. So you can even use it anywhere, even for lunch. So one of the ones that Big Al used as an example, he said, I'm just curious, do you really enjoy being fat? I just found out that the dessert that you ordered has a lot of calories. And would it be okay if I ate it for you? So obviously I wouldn't use that particular one, but I thought that that was great because you can use all of these different phrases, combine them into something that makes sense for the products that we're selling, for the business opportunity that we have, and use those to start establishing more of a relationship. And then the only objective of what you're trying to do is you're trying to get to a point where your prospects are making the decisions based on the facts and the information that you're sharing with them versus coming into it with their blinders up and their salesperson radar on. And instead of that information getting through and them being able to make a decision, it's bouncing off of their forehead and falling on the floor. And you're never able to actually get into them making a true decision about how they want to proceed. So really, all of these different hints and tips through this section are just around getting to a point where the person can truly hear your message and then make a decision whether or not they want to proceed. And honestly, no matter what their decision is, that's okay. It's just that now they've heard it versus before where they weren't even listening. Okay, perfect. So next one is really around closing a sale. So if you think about it, closing a sale is probably one of the most important things. But when Big Al talked about it, what he talked about is that you don't really do your close at the end of your presentation. Wouldn't it be better to start off your presentation with your close? And so the thing that's the most important is actually already completed. And that's something that really resonated with me because it's so awkward when you go through the whole presentation and then you're trying to wrap it up and you don't exactly know how to do that very easily or smoothly, and suddenly it becomes really awkward. And so what his suggestion is that, all right, who likes rejection? No one likes rejection. Who wants to close their sales? Well, everyone wants to close the sale, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be doing this. So how do you do that when you have someone who has their guard up? And honestly, he said that the more negative the person is, the more incredulous, the more skeptical, the more combative that the person is, the better off you are using this method. And that's great because then it allows you to really find a way to close out that sale and start with that as part of the process versus waiting until the very end. So I would challenge all of you to just take an opportunity, find some negative people that really don't want to hear your pitch. And I don't know if any of you know any, but most of them are my friends and family. So it shouldn't be too hard to find them. And watch their body language. What happens a lot of times is they'll say, fine. Like I've seen all your posts. I've heard you talking about this. Like, tell me, they sit back, they cross their arms, they get aggressive, and they say, give me your pitch. And what you're going to want to do then is there's some really key things that you can do. And again, it goes back to the kind of unconscious mind, like programs that are running. And it's really interesting because I think that Big Al, think about all of the decisions and all of the things that you do on a daily basis that require decisions that you're not involved in at all. So let's say you try to walk 10 feet down the road. You're not going to be able to walk those 10 feet without a bunch of different decisions happening. This is how we're going to move our leg. This is what we're going to do with our ankle. You're not involved in those decisions at all. And he says, really, the reality is you're not involved consciously with most decisions at all. All decisions are happening in your unconscious mind pretty much instantaneously and without your input from a conscious perspective. So if you think about that, all right, well, number one, it's a little scary. But also, it makes a lot of sense then when you start talking to someone, when they have body language where they're sitting back, they're talking about, yeah, give me your pitch. They've already made their decision at that point, right? They're already resisting what you want to tell them. They're already resisting what you want to share with them. They're very, very skeptical. And so they're not at a point where they're really going to hear your message because they're thinking about all the reasons that they're going to say no. So what you're going to do is that think about from the time that we were little kids, all of us loved hearing stories. And I'm sure for those of you that are moms, that you have kiddos that love to hear the stories. And anytime that you get that opportunity to hear a story, what happens is that your subconscious mind, and this is the craziest thing, is that your subconscious mind really does has a very specific response when it hears that you're going to hear a story. So the way that you want to start with these folks that are so negative, that have the aggressive body language, is you're going to say, before I tell you how this works, automatically just that little phrase says, I'm not going to start my sales pitch yet. Oh, well, then I can relax. Like I no longer have to be sitting back and all aggressive because she's not starting her pitch yet. So I can lean forward and I can engage. So even when we were doing this from a role play perspective, which is why I think you should really take this content and start trying it out, even on your spouse, one of your friends, however, just tell them, hey, be a reluctant prospect. Try that, and then let me see if I can get you to change your body language and change how you're actually feeling about the pitch itself. This was crazy because automatically, as soon as you said, before I tell you how this works, and then you say, let me tell you what happened to me. And then automatically, our arms came down, we leaned forward, and the way that Big Al describes it, he says, your subconscious goes, ooh, a story. I'm here to hear a story. And so it actually pulls up a big Barker lounge, pops a big bowl of popcorn, props its feet up and says, oh, I'm here to listen to a story. Totally changes the body language, changes their unconscious mind as far as being more open to listening to your message. And then also it does this crazy thing that anytime that you hear a story, your mind, no matter what kind of story it is, the lead character you replace with yourself. So as you're hearing a story, suddenly your mind sees in its mind's eye movie that you're now the lead character in this particular story. So that's great, right? But what that means is that we, as ambassadors, need to really prep that story in advance. So we have a great story that's putting us in a really strong role from a lead character perspective. And you need to prepare that story for both your business prospects and your customers. And what's going to happen in their unconscious mind is that they're actually going to get to a point where suddenly, since they've already been through this, they've already experienced this as the lead character, that they're looking for reasons to join what you're talking to them about versus looking for reasons not to join, which is what they were doing before when they had the negative body language and all of that. So this is a great method just for bringing down the guard, getting them engaged, and then also you're going to turn it to where they're actually looking for reasons why they shouldn't do this versus looking for reasons that they should. Then after you've gone through and you said them, before I get started, let me tell you what happened with me. Then you're going to very easily transition to, you finish your story, you talk about, hey, when I first joined Plexus, this is what the business did for me. This is what I've been able to achieve financially. This is the changes that I've seen in my health and my wellness since I started. And then you can say, anyways, let me tell you how this works. And at that point, how much more friendly does that seem? How much more have they already engaged with you because they've listened to your story? And you can then transition smoothly into talking about the detailed information around your business or around the products, depending on if you're talking to someone about the opportunity or if you're talking to someone just as a customer or retailer preferred that they would want to get signed up. So those are some of your key things that you're going to do for talking. And then what you really want to do is you want to help people solve problems. So what you need to do is you really need to look for negative people with a problem and then make them want to change. So think about, you've got someone who's working as a gas station attendant and they're making minimum wage, they're working overnights, they're working horrible hours, they hate their boss, It's not exactly a glamorous position. I'm sure there's other things that they hate about it as well. And then all you have to do is ask them a question. Well, this is your situation, and they're talking about it, and they're talking about how awful it is and how much of a hassle it is. And you say, well, would you like to do something about it? Or have you ever considered doing something about it? And that works for family and friends too. So I think about, I'm talking to my friends, and one girlfriend is constantly going on and on about, hey, I've got this weight problem and I just can't seem to keep it off. And no matter what I do, I still have all these cravings. And that's when I say, well, have you ever considered doing anything about it? Well, yeah. Well, no, I haven't. Or I haven't found anything that works. Or, no, not really. Or, well, I'd love to find something that actually worked. And then that gives you the perfect entrance into talking to them about, well, great. Then here's this wonderful set of products that I have that could help you with your weight loss. They will make the cravings go, decrease. They will actually help you get healthy. So let me talk to you about that. Then what you can do is you can just wrap it up from there and said, okay, well, what's going to be easier for you? Continuing to struggle with your weight and be unhappy with your cravings and being unhappy with where you are, or to try Plexus and see if it can actually help you. And a lot of people, when you put it in that context, or you say to the gas station attendant, well, what's going to be easier for you? To stay in this dead-end job working for this boss, or potentially owning and managing your own business and being able to make more money with more flexible hours? So suddenly you're going to incent them to want to make a change, because for goodness sakes, that's a lot easier than admitting that they want to stay miserable, right? I don't think a lot of people would say, no, I'm going to just go ahead and stay in this dead-end job. Now, some might, but what you're hopefully going to do is that, give them that contrast, and suddenly they're going to say, wow, you're right. I don't want to stay in this dead-end job. I don't want to stay in the same situation I'm in. I want to make a change, and therefore I'm going to be so much more willing to listen and take you up on the opportunity that you're offering. All right, and then the last part is Big Al just kind of threw this in at the very end, and he said, all right, now there's just some little sound bites that you can use, and you can either use these as part of the close of the sale or any other part of the conversation about your products, right? Is you want to talk and use the term fat burning machine. So apparently, in all of our minds, in all of our subconscious, all of us want to be fat burning machines. Who knew, right? But you can just say, all right, well, I really needed a product that would work for me. And with our products, you can turn your body into a fat burning machine. Or, wouldn't you love to turn your body into a fat burning machine? And it's just one of those things where you can kind of throw that in either as part of the close or anywhere throughout the rest of the conversation. And it'll just plant that little seed in their mind that, oh, wow, the Plexus products will turn me into a fat burning machine. Now, I wouldn't say that to someone who weighs 75 pounds, but that's something that could absolutely work with a lot of the folks that we talk to. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the mute, but I did want to let you guys know that that Tom Big Al Schrader is the name of the person who did both of these talks at the convention. He has one of the books that covers that first part around how to get instant trust, belief, influence, and rapport. He actually has a book on that you can read. It is very short, very succinct. It has 13 different ways that you can do things. I've covered probably about 6 of those. He has a much more comprehensive list. He didn't talk about that in the convention, so I just covered what we talked about there. He also has several other books that you can look into. One of the other ones I liked was The First Sentences for Network Marketing. So it's about kind of getting people on your side when you're doing the conversations. He also has a website, and then I actually found it was great. You could go on and watch him in video. You could actually watch some of these videos and him talk about this. It wasn't specifically at our Plexus convention, but it is at other events that he's spoken at in the past. So that's just a couple of other resources that you can turn to get some of the same information and even potentially get some more detail.